Click to 8 o'clock, so we'll open the November 20th, 2025 meeting of Sherburne County Economic Development Authority. First item of business is to consider approval of the official minutes from October 16th, 2025. I'd be looking for a motion to approve. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'll also be looking for a motion to approve today's agenda.
We will be moving a few things around. We should just start with 9 o'clock.
We'll be coming in a little later, so we'll move number 1 probably till number 3. Flip-flop those two.
However it works out.
I'll approve the agenda with however it needs to be moved around.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move to item 2, consider approval of the 2025-2030 Sherburne County EDA Strategic Plan.
Yeah, good. We'll just get into it then when all of our brains are still fresh at 8 a.m. So the strategic plan is just as we amended it last time. So this is just for us to give final approval on our 2025 through 2030 strategic plan.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, as we talked about last time, and then once we approve, then I bring it to the county board for their approval. Unless there's any questions on it, it was just the last additions we had from the last board meeting, and we just keep moving forward with it. So I want to see if there's any questions on the strategic plan. Otherwise, we vote to approve as it stands now, and then we move it to the county board.
All right, any questions or further discussion on the strategic plan? If not, I'd be looking for a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we'll flip back to item number 1 now. And that's we get a presentation from our Health and Human Services Department. Amanda Larkin, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome and thank you for your time today.
Hey, good morning. Sorry about that. I heard 9 when I was invited. So, but you know what? We can respond and we can respond quickly. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Amanda Larson. I'm the Director of Health and Human Services. I'll let my folks introduce themselves when they come up, but appreciate the invitation to come speak to you all. Housing, housing, it's funny because Brian and us tend to go to the same meetings on 2 issues, housing and childcare, because it's probably just as much health and human services as it is economic development. Obviously, those 2 things are exponential drivers in where you want to live, work, play, but also the cost. And so Health and Human Services dipped our toe in housing probably right after the pandemic. Housing, unhoused, people who are housing unstable. We use these terms kind of interchangeably because the typical homelessness doesn't look like the gentleman living on the street, although that is prevalent here in Sherburne County. But a lot of times it looks a lot more like doubling up, couch hopping, living in temporary, not so temporary, multi-generational arrangements, sleeping in cars. And so Health and Human Services recognized a need to have a housing navigator, housing social workers, and so we were able to obtain a variety of different grants. And so we've had a smattering of funding that's funding 2 housing social workers probably for the last 3-4 years. There are no levy funds that go to those 2 people, and so really it's which grants can we pull from. But I was at a meeting about a month ago, and right after the meeting I was at, it was an internal meeting, I emailed Bruce and Dan. I'm like, housing's always been prevalent in our office. Housing's going through the roof. And Dan's like, sounds like a great EDA presentation. So here we are. So just a real quick snapshot. Housing referrals to our office. This, when somebody calls Health and Human Services, you have a pretty complicated phone tree, and usually people are calling either for economic assistance programs, so public assistance, healthcare assistance, or they're calling for social services. And so we have intake in each of those areas because we want to make sure that people aren't getting passed off from person to person to person. We've got 20 different units, 260 staff, so a lot of times just trying to figure out where that person needs to be directed and who that person. And so when people call, they typically aren't calling for housing, but usually they're calling for 5, 6, 7, 8 things, and housing's typically one of them. And so when we are logging the work coming into our office, so we're logging why people are calling. If you look October 2025 to October 2024, that's a 356% increase in people calling our office as their primary need for housing. So that's a lot. If you've heard of the point in time, I don't know if it's a national thing or a state thing, but every year the state of Minnesota tries to get their hands around how many homeless people do we have in the state. The best we've got is what's called a point in time housing. So it's usually like January 24th, January 25th, sometime around there. And everybody who works with unhoused or persons is asked to keep a count. These are only people who we are interacting with, who the food shelves are interacting with, who Central Minnesota Housing's interacting with. These are not counting the numbers of people who are connected with no services whatsoever. So really, it's not a great measure of unhoused persons, but it's the best we've got. And so you'll see just in our PIT counts from 2023 to 2024, we experienced a 50% increase. Is it because 50% more people are unhoused? Maybe, maybe not. We all know how crazy rents are, or is it just because now we have more services and more people out there counting the people? But you'll see that it kind of goes through who's doubled up, who's in emergency shelters, transitional housing. And this is the fun slide that I get to present on in terms of money. And this was my 8:30 meeting that I never got to meet with my person on, so I'm gonna just wing it here. So in terms of money, when I was at an internal meeting a month ago, we were talking about the intakes that are coming in, but then we also talked about the money that's going out in terms of direct assistance. Again, none of these are levy dollars, but when we ask for people who need help with first and last month's rent, with security deposits, with utility shutoffs, these are our emergency dollars that are going out. So EA is our state allocation for adults, just adults, right? Or is it families? And so any adults with children in the home, this is our EA allocation. EGA is adults. ARPA, you'll see that we did a lot of things with our ARPA dollars in Sherburne County, and one of which was direct assistance to families because we recognize a need. When we gave these ARPA dollars, we really tried to match it around our EA and EGA guidelines because it's pretty strict in terms of who gets it, what kind of verifications, what kind of documentations you need. And so we really wanted kind of those eligibility determinations, and then ARPA was kind of the overflow, like if you didn't necessarily fit or if you've used your allocation, the money we gave out in ARPA. LHPA is Local Homeless Prevention Aid. We have a slide later on that. That's again a state allocation specifically for families who are experiencing housing instabilities. SAHA, this was the reason for my email for Dan and Bruce, is like our SAHA dollars, we are burning through these dollars because rent is so expensive. So you'll see here, our totals actually have remained pretty consistent. We are right under the $300,000 mark for giving away dollars, again, to help people maintain housing. The other part of our housing social workers is we're not just giving dollars away. So if somebody's income is $1,500 and their rent is $1,900, we're denying those applications. That's not a sustainable model. We're really trying to keep people in safe and supportive housing. And so really a part of that is connecting them with a housing social worker so they're able to obtain employment or they're able to not have to keep going back to the well because these are one-time pots of money. And so really they're not supposed to be reoccurring expenses. And so with that, I will turn it over to Derek.
I do have one question, Amanda. So of the people that call in for housing assistance, is most of it, you know, hey, I have no place to live, I'm out on the street or in my car, or is it, you know, I'm short, can you help out with rent this month or utilities, or what's the matrix, or where's the demand on
Mitch,
that?
do you want to talk about that? Usually people are looking for resources. It's usually not I'm living on the street, but I'll let Mitch, our intake supervisor.
I think we see a variety of things. We're seeing a lot of people residing in places where they're no longer able to. An example that I would give you is I had someone come in recently. They needed housing. They were residing in an apartment with their friend, but the friend is now at risk of losing their housing because they have another individual, and that puts them over the capacity of their apartment. So we're seeing a lot of things. We're seeing people coming in with crises where they're truly living out of their vehicle and have absolutely nowhere to go, but there's also people that have a place for tonight but may not have a place tomorrow.
So that 300% increase that you're looking at, do you have an estimate of, I mean, is there an increase of people that are actually out on the street?
Yes.
Is that,
Yes. Yeah, and I think the point in time numbers would also reference that, where we're seeing, I believe that they have doubled since last year. There are more people living on the street in Sherburne County at this time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are you clicking ahead or is she doing that?
Oh, you get to click.
Oh.
You have the power.
Okay.
You know how to use that?
No, it looks fascinating. All right, good morning, everybody. Derek Magard, I supervise our HOPE team here at Sherburne County. And I already tried to click, but it didn't work. Let's try it again. There we go. So the two housing social workers that Amanda was talking about, those folks are both on my team. And so I see all of those referrals that come from Mitch's team, and so that's kind of my piglet in here today. So we'll talk a little bit about SAHA funds. We are typically using SAHA funds for our single adults, and so those are folks that are coming in, like Mitch said, straight up homeless, or sometimes needing some assistance with rent to get them by, but we're doing our diligence too with those folks, just like I know Lisa will talk about with her EGA and EG funds. So we're doing some research with them too. If we're working with them as a housing social worker, we're checking to make sure this is going to be sustainable. So we're not just handing these dollars out saying, okay, we're just fixing a leaky gap in the Titanic, but we're going to be in the same situation we are going to be now next month. And so we're making sure it's sustainable. And so some of that might look a little different for everybody individually, where a lot of times with our housing and social workers, we are then looking for something different for housing, something that is going to be sustainable. So this money, again, is being used for helping folks find new places. When they come in completely street homeless, this is helping with damage deposits, first month's rent, application fees, some of those pieces to that as well. So you can see we helped out 59 in 2024 and 43 individuals, families with all of those above that I mentioned in 2025. ARPA dollars, Amanda's slide earlier showed the amount we used this year. I think it was about $4,000, but served 72 individual families using our ARPA funds. And again, we used that to get creative as a fallback when we ran out of EGA and EG money. Local Homeless Prevention Aid, this one is truly for families. And so we use this often when we have people come. A lot of times they're single adult with several kids involved. And it's the same process as SAHA. We're helping them find housing. We're helping them sustain housing. And it's much, much more than that too. We're really looking at a person as a whole. And so, yeah, we want to get them housing. A lot of times people come in and say, I don't want to focus on my mental health. I don't want to do any of that kind of stuff, my physical health, until I have secure housing. I think everybody in this room would agree with that having secure housing then allows you to be motivated to get some help in other areas as well. So with our Local Homeless Prevention Aid, we're talking through a lot of things that we can do on top of that. So, yeah, same kind of stuff. First month's rent, damage deposit. A lot of times people come to us and say, hey, lost my job. I have a new job starting in a week. This is a one-time gap fill for the month of November, for example, but I'm going to get my first paycheck on December 7th. Can you help me out? We're doing our diligence with that, making sure this is truly sustainable. Again, Amanda said earlier, we're not going to kick in money when rent is $1,900 a month and you only make $1,500 a month. That does not make any sense for us to waste funds going to that kind of thing, where we would instead be helping them look for something that's more affordable to keep long-standing with. So Local Homeless Prevention Aid, the difference there is we're working with families with kids. The KFT program, so we give money, just like Benton County does, to Lutheran Social Services. And so KFT, or Keeping Families Together, is designed for folks or families that have child protection involvement in them. KFT, Keeping Families Together, does the same thing that my two housing social workers do. They help with sustainability, they help find new housing. A lot of times when child protection gets involved, they're at risk of losing their housing. There's an eviction notice on the table when they get out there. Sometimes they're homeless, living in the streets in a car. At the Walmart parking lot seems to be a very big hotbed. So those Lutheran Social Services will take those referrals from our child protection team and essentially do the same thing that our 2 housing social workers will do. Just the caveat there is they're open with folks that have child protection involved, but same kind of stuff too. And then I think we're on to EA funds. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Lisa Holker. I supervise our family financial assistance team. So within my team, we're looking at eligibility for SNAP, medical assistance, cash assistance, and then underneath that also falls emergency assistance. So on my team, we have EA. The next slide is housed in our adult team. They're very similar programs. They both come from state dollars. We're allocated every year a certain dollar amount. Emergency assistance comes out of our MFIP consolidated grant, so we get a large chunk of money, and we have to parse that out to say, here's how much we can use for county staff costs, here's how much we contract with Avivo to provide our employment services that are required with the MFIP program, and kind of whatever is left over after all the other money that has to be paid out of that grant gets to get put into our EA funds. Our EA funds, they're income limited. We're income guidelines, we're looking at cost-effective requirements, same deal as Derek. Are we putting you into a place that you can't afford, or are you in a place that is not sustainable? And those aren't gonna be eligible, right? We have a limited pot of money, so we're trying to use our dollars for the best possible use and not, this is a stopgap and you're gonna be back here in 2 months. We also have some time limitations on that because what we wanted to make sure, so EA and EGA have been around like, I can't say forever, but long before the pandemic. This was kind of our emergency pots of money prior to all of the things we were able to do since COVID, before housing really became a big issue, because there's always been people in need in the community, right? So these are the longer standing programs. So we had put in an 18-month limit that you cannot access. It was a pretty hard and fast 18 months. You can use it one time. We did loosen up a little bit when there was child protection involvement. So before we had some of the KFT grants, things like that, it was much more cost effective for us to help keep a family housed, keep them together, than potentially further child protection involvement and get those kids out of or not have those kids in a safe place to stay. So you'll see our grant swings, or our allocation swings a little bit wildly, and that is because the MFIP funding allocation, I'm not gonna go way into the weeds, but it's not based on our actual caseloads. The allocation is based on a statewide historic from 2002, 50%, and then 50% is your proportion of the MFIP cases. So while our caseload has stayed super consistent, like within 1 or 2 cases every year for probably the last 10 years, our allocation changes because our proportion of the MFIP cases in the whole state may go up or down depending upon kind of what's happening in other places in the state. So in 24, we were pretty low. The nice part about that is we did have some SAHA dollars that we were able to supplement with. And so all of those families that maybe would have been previously served by EA, we had some SAHA funds as a stopgap there. In 25, we had 101,000. We were done with that in October. 71 families you can see there. And then in 2026, so next year, it's actually gonna go down a little bit, not because our MFIP allocation changed, but because our contract with Avivo to provide our employment services went up quite a bit. And so we're paying more there, we have less in EA. So then we look at some of these backup funds are super important, or we're getting to September or October and we have no additional money left for those folks, and now we're in our cold months. So that's what EA is. Any questions on that before I flip to EGA? Is it the down or the next? There we go. Okay, and then emergency general assistance. This program is housed in our adult team. Guidelines are very similar. So theirs is once in a 12-month period, but their dollar amount is much lower. You can see the allocation, 16,000, 13,000. Next year it's 9,500. And so this is for single adults. So if there's a minor child in the home, pregnant woman, they're looking at EA dollars. This is for single adults. And this one, it's a low dollar amount, but we also, the guidelines are so tight on this one, we're not able to use it very often because you have to meet income guidelines. You also have to be cost effective. And a lot of our single adults, if their only income is, you know, a GA grant of $250, you can't find rent for $250. And so if they don't have a job or their only income is maybe Social Security in Sherburne County, it's very hard to find housing that can be cost effective. So then they're not eligible because they don't meet the guidelines. So I think that's what I got. Anything else?
I just want to wrap up by saying housing, 95% of what Health and Human Services does is because it's mandated. It's told to us by the state. Housing is one area that it's not a mandate. We don't have to be in housing. However, the work that we do in housing is so critical and so preventative and ties into basically every other line of service. It really behooves us. It benefits us. It benefits our clients to be in housing. Our housing social workers, there's not a penny of levy dollars, and all of the money going out, so the almost $300,000, none of those are levy dollars. And so really, the SAHA dollars really help that critical gap. So you see that there's some pretty significant fluctuations in terms of our allocations from the state. And so we either have to write competitive grant proposals to get more money, which we've done that too. I think prior to these slides, we had some Blue Cross Blue Shield dollars. But SAHA's really been critical to fill that gap, so we're able to give the same amount of money while everything else is going up, our numbers, costs, rents, et cetera. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
I've got a question.
Please.
Traditionally, have you been able to do much root cause analysis on how these individuals and families have found themselves in the situation where they needed housing assistance?
I think it's, Commissioner, it's all across the board.
Well, I think it would be informative, because, you know,
Yeah.
one of your key tenets is always preventative. Prevention is so much, you get so many, you know, dollars on pennies spent on prevention. And I think it would be very informative to start to collect that data, which is sensitive, I understand. But it would be interesting to know, are people finding themselves in this situation because of job loss, because of divorce, because of mental illness, because of medical issues? I mean, there's a histogram there of the reasons that people are finding themselves in this situation. And I think if we track that over time, there may be actions we can take to head it off earlier. You know, as an example, let's say that we're seeing a trend with unemployment. If we could then tie it somehow into when people first claim unemployment, or if there's some way to manage that, I think there might be some preventative measures, some preemptive measures we could take that would help early on. So I think it would be, I think it might be helpful to look at that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you're right, a lot of what we do is preventative. I think mental health is a core cause of so many things. We implemented last year a clinical services unit because a lot of times people weren't getting diagnostic assessments to open up the door, leads to unemployment, job loss. I mean, it's all interconnected, but you're right, as much as that we can swing upstream, and this is one of our upstream preventions. So I appreciate that. That sounds like a good plan or project. I'll give it to Jody.
Amanda, to piggyback off of what Andrew is talking about too, I mean, there's also the thought process that there are people that are working and still struggling because of the cost of rents, the cost of utilities, the cost of food, and the ends just aren't meeting.
Yeah.
But
There's a fair number of people that are working represented in these numbers. I mean, it's not traditionally what we think of. I mean, there's a lot of working poor.
Right.
Absolutely.
And also just to make sure the understanding is, this is across Sherburne County. A lot of times we have the thought to think, well, it's not in the city of Elk River, it's not in the city of Big Lake, city of Zimmerman, Becker, all the way up the line. It's across the board, and the numbers can be quite astounding when you see them broke down as to where they're at. And I think that has to be shown as well.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times it's easy for us to think, oh, it's the Elk River Walmart parking lot, or it's up in St. Cloud, but I think there's also some pretty big settlement in the Sherburne Wildlife Refuge, if I'm not mistaken, too. So it really is. It's What's that?
The Becker Hotel.
Becker Hotel. There's quite a bit. We've, while the majority of folks that are involved in housing are working poor, doubling up, couch hopping, we have done some traditional street outreach. And so we do know, thanks a lot in part to our co-responders too, because there are definite places where the traditional homeless folks are residing in Sherburne County.
Yeah, we went up to the Sherburne County Wildlife Refuge, I don't know, a dozen times this summer, and it was super interesting for our outreach folks because they got to talk with some DNR officers. And they're like, yeah, they're right over here, and they walked right over to where their encampments were at. And so think about, yeah, I said Walmart parking lot earlier too, but it truly is all over the map where people are trying to stay and trying to be comfortable and live.
Do you have a map distribution of like how your dollars, I think just as a visual representation, it would be interesting to add that to this presentation, to just show plotted areas where there are concentrations and to just show, obviously illustrate to Rayanne's point, how the dollars are distributed, maybe evenly or in certain areas more than others. And that might be, again, where we can focus on prevention.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Molly, yeah.
Amanda, I know Lori has that data.
Okay.
And then can you talk about, there's a couple projects in St. Cloud that have taken place over the last 2 or 3 years to show some wins. On the southeast side, we went to the groundbreaking a couple years ago.
Avivo, yep. So if you're not familiar, I think Avivo was here last time to present. Avivo is not a typical homeless shelter. So there's a variety of places up in St. Cloud. Any one of you, tell me if I'm misspeaking. There's some low barrier, no barrier. So again, if you have a pet or you're using alcohol, they're still going to welcome you. Avivo has essentially a warehouse, and then there's tiny homes within that warehouse. And so they have a variety of different staff providing safe and supportable. So you don't need to be sober to come in, but we're still going to have a chemical health counselor, helping you to obtain those goals, to obtain employment. And so they have been on a long journey, because right now they have a location in North Loop, Minneapolis, and they've been a long journey to have a St. Cloud location. And so the groundbreaking was just a month or so ago. And so we're excited to have an Avivo as a partner very quickly up in St. Cloud. We have the Salvation Army, Lincoln Place of Hope. Lincoln House is still, Lincoln Center is still open. So there's a variety of St. Cloud, but I really think Avivo is going to provide that a step above in terms of safety and supports that those folks are getting.
Yeah, because their model is more prescribed to, you get these individual, I'm going to call them pods, for lack of a better way to describe them, but you get your own individual space, and that's kind of like your home. And the wraparound services that are available, and the whole goal is to get you up on your feet and back into society as a positive, yes. Thank you.
One thing I appreciated about Avivo is a lot of times in our business and their business, it's so often chasing after the dollars and almost modifying how we do business in order to be eligible for other people's dollars. And Avivo really has held a strict line. We are not a homeless shelter. We do not want to keep people here. Our intent is to get people supported and back out in the community. And so they actually, some act of God, they were able to get a pretty significant legislative appropriation, not for one-time funding, but for ongoing. So a supportive housing rate increase. And so they were able to get that passed last legislative session. And so now the people at Avivo, their per diem rate that they're going to get from the state has increased. So that's really going to help their operations. But they are not interested in chasing after dollars. They are interested in getting people back out in the workforce, back out in their own homes, and not keeping people there. So I really, I appreciated their model.
And then can you also touch on the fact that, a lot of these are state and federal dollars that support these programs, and for various reasons, they're starting to reduce that funding. So we're going to be doing a lot more with less. So that is something that is going to create a pressure.
Yes, and that's the mantra, do more with less always. But really, again, since housing is not a required program, most programs that you see counties deliver are gonna look similar in 87 other counties. Housing is not. Some counties don't have any housing resources, they have no housing support. Other counties have county levy dollars going in. You know, we work closely with our 7W partners in Wright, Sherburne, Stearns, Benton, and so I think all of us have some sort of housing social worker that are funded by grant dollars, and especially in that St. Cloud hub, we're working together because where you're a Sherburne County resident one day, and resident is defined where you last spent the night, where you're Sherburne County one day, you're Benton County the next day, and then you're Stearns County the next 2 days, and so we really try hard to work together.
And I find it interesting that housing is not viewed as, without the base foundation of housing, it's gonna be hard to actually produce a sustainable and productive life. And even the hospital organizations have realized that and are working to try to figure that out as well, because it's the foundation that you start to build on.
I just want to thank you for everything you do too. A lot of times we talk about mental health or juvenile justice. Housing is a continuum, and I know this group is working a lot on workforce housing, and so I really appreciate that. So whereas we hopefully can get people to more stable housing, I mean, that really becomes, you know, then your guys' turn. And so again, really appreciate the partnership and really appreciate everything you all do.
And briefly, I'd echo that. We appreciate the partnership with economic development. I meet with Jody once a month and Peggy on the public health side and Mitch a lot on the childcare side. So we appreciate that too, the appreciation of a full spectrum and how we all play into that.
Absolutely. So, great.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to item number 3, consider approval of Sherburne County EDA marketing materials and website, Brian.
All right, so this is the exciting stuff and where your participation really matters and your opinion matters too. So in the last month, we worked closely with both Dan and I, as well as our communications specialist, Dave Unzi, who I think is watching right now, as well as our human resources, Maddie Bromberg, did a lot of work with us too, because as a framing of this, our Human Resources Department is also looking at how they want to market jobs for Sherburne County ourselves. So with that in mind, I wanted to show what Human Resources has already developed is something that looks like this. So they've got the black background, and they're talking about coming and joining our team. So that kind of frames some of the color schemes that went into some of the designs here. And we all ballparked and brainstormed different taglines that we can add to. Obviously, opportunity awaits is our county tagline, but specific to businesses, we wanted to focus on that. So we kind of narrowed it down to 6 different billboard templates for you guys to take a look at. And I think either we can use this as kind of workshopping. If you hate all 6 of them, tell us that. We'll go back to the drawing board. If there's 1 or 2 that we'd like to move forward with, then going into the December board meeting, we can actually look at pricing for doing different billboards and working with Lamar on what billboards are actually open. But, and I do have them printed out here if anybody wants a printed version. But here we go. So the tagline we came up with is business, jobs, and home. Because we want to highlight that we have lots of business opportunities for business, we have lots of jobs for our workforce, and we are actively working on housing and homes and having enough for people that want to live and work here. And all of these will call back to people cruising down the freeway. We wanted a quick thing that they could go to, and so it calls back to the SherburneBiz.com, which I'll be going into next. It's a update from our SherburneBusiness.com that we had about 5 years ago during COVID and worked with Switchboard on. We've updated a lot of that content and moved it over to SherburneBiz.com because it's a little bit shorter and snappier. And we're hoping that people can remember to look that up when they can do that safely when they're not driving. So, first design here, and this is actually a picture of Sherburne County. This is in Elk River. And Dave Unzi did a great job working with our aerial
And that's God's country.
I know, it's out there, I know, I get it. It's District 1.
This is design number 2, so white background, kind of a splash there. And then number 3, and again, this is thinking about billboards. This one incorporates the HR's new website for their jobs, that's SherburneJobs.com, and then that redirects back to the county jobs website. So that one has both. And then we get into 3 other totally different types of designs here. So this is opportunity awaits with an open sign, jobs, business, housing. Open sign here again. And kind of something along these lines, so opportunity awaits. So a lot more kind of simple with that black background.
So those are, can you go back to the first one?
I was gonna say, I like the last one because it provides direction. Your opportunity awaits, you can build your career, you can grow your company, and you can make it home. So it gives the direction.
I think of the first two, the first one, it's kind of hard to see what that picture is, so I think with the picture, a little bit larger representation to show what it is. Although the business, jobs, homes, in a bigger font would be good.
I really like the first one. You know, the peeling back, to your point, is, takes up a lot of space. I mean, I kind of like the implication. But I really like the first one because there is very little to read on a billboard as you're driving by, so you can catch it quick. It's not distracting. And I like the SherburneBiz.com because I think that's something you can remember. Because that's one of the challenges with billboards is, you know,
Unless you're sitting at a stoplight.
unless you, yeah. So the others, the color schemes distract, I think, from, they're fine for something that would be printed, or a material that you can look at. But the first one, because it's simple, if it's a billboard application, I like it. I like some version of that the best. Other opinions?
Could we add the SherburneBiz.com, okay, we're speaking to the businesses. SherburneJobs.com, can that be added to that one if someone's looking, you know what I mean? So we've got both of those websites.
You know what I would probably recommend, if you've got 2 up there, you run the risk of missing out on them both. What you could do is on SherburneBiz.com is have a link to the SherburneJobs.com, right? That way you only have to know one URL. The only thing I'm worried about, and I don't want to change the color, is Sherburne County in blue on the logo, is that our standard branding?
No, not necessarily. It depends on the background, so we can make that white.
Yeah, I would make that white, because you're not gonna be able to see the blue.
Right here. That's an example,
Yeah.
We are changing those, so it would make sense to change that too.
Yeah.
You know, put these on our fleets or what?
Yeah.
The only other thing is, and this is just a personal, after 20 years of critiquing PowerPoint slides, should business, jobs, and homes be capitalized?
Yes.
Do we need to have homes in it? Do we want it to draw people up here just to live? I think just business and jobs be my take on it, just because that's what we want.
Yeah.
We want business, we don't want all the people.
Okay, that doesn't go hand in hand, you gotta have workforce, and they gotta have a place to live.
Yeah, but if you're driving down the highway, when I see, okay, the reason why they want us is because of business and jobs. I think it's more simple, but.
I like having I will say I like having the 3. because it feels holistic to me. You can work here, you can play here,
You can live
and you can live
Whose
here.
slogan is that? Live, work, play. That's someone's slogan?
I think it is somebody's slogan. I think it is somebody's slogan. Probably Hennepin.
Most every city likes that slogan, live, work, and play.
Yeah, but I do like, I get your point, but I think with the simplicity of this, I think the three works pretty well together.
I know, Greta, you had mentioned you had to leave early, so I want to make sure you get a chance to.
I like the business jobs homes. I think it ties into the work we're doing on housing. I like the peeling, like, okay, you don't know what's gonna be there. It's kind of like, gets you excited about it, but that's just my opinion.
I know, it's hard to your point, it's kind of hard to see that picture, but there's sort of an action implied with that peel back.
We kind of experimented with making a bigger peel, but then everything else gets so much smaller as soon as you make that peel bigger. So it was a catch-22.
Well, I think it's an invitation to come in, be a part of this, and you can peel it all back then. You want to see what's more behind the picture.
Okay, are you looking for a selection today, Brian, or what?
Yeah, if we do narrow it down to one or even two, then we can move forward with those designs, start speaking with Lamar, and start actually looking at pricing options for billboards. So yeah, we are looking to narrow it down to one or two if needed.
Well, it seems number one has risen to the top with the suggested Nathan to Sherburne County with the white, like what our normal logo looks like, and capitalizing the other.
It's white capitalized.
Are you looking at having two different billboard designs? Or are you looking at selecting between the final two for one design?
I know, I think originally we were thinking of two different billboards designs, so you can mix and match them depending on where it's at, but I think that was the original thought, but I think with all of our designs coming in pretty similar as far as our tagline goes, I'm fine personally with moving forward with one, because I think that one has risen to the top so well. Want to make sure, any nay on the, on that one, not that it's a vote, but just want to make sure we hear everybody.
I've looked at it 3 times, and the first one always has been my first choice, I think, all 3 times I've looked at it. So, and seeing it today on the screen, I think, picturing driving down the road, it's just simple, so I think it's easy to.
Well, having one, I think we get consistency and also costs. We're not paying for the development of 2 separate signs, which is an upfront cost, so.
I also think, and my marketing colleagues and I would argue this back and forth on whether you have a couple of ad designs or whether you have one and stick with that. And I'm always been of the school that you have one, you go with that initially. Maybe down the road you have modifications.
Right.
But you start out with one.
People quit looking at these signs after 10 drive-bys, you're not noticing it, so eventually they do have a shelf life where you need to refresh, but.
Maybe I missed something, but do we know where they're gonna be?
I think when we were speaking last month, we were talking about along like I-94 or Highway 10, so catching people either driving to or coming out of the 7 Metro area. So trying to target into 7 Metro and bring them into Sherburne. Was my understanding.
Well, my understanding was we were gonna go further into the cities. I mean, we don't need to advertise to ourselves.
No, right, yeah, outside of us. So, yeah, closer to the cities, but the full 7 county metro, or at the very least the corridor of 94 and Highway 10.
I think we were gonna bring costs to the next meeting, so you know what each different area costs, and we can make a decision based on that. So we'll do some in the metro, some in St. Cloud. There's quite a bit of different costs based on the traffic count,
Okay.
so we'll finalize the design by capitalizing it and changing it to white. Maybe reducing that peel a little bit, Brian, that seemed to be a concern, as that takes up a lot of space, so maybe we can experiment with that. And then,
Although I mean, I get the point, but I do, there's something about that I really like.
There's an appeal to it.
See, I almost said it. And I was like, no, it's too early for puns.
I was just curious, is that cursor click, is that that's something that like, because the rest of them don't seem to, usually someone was, you know, if you have a .com, you know, you gotta click on it or do something. I just was curious.
Looks, yeah, it implies an
I was
action.
just curious as to,
It implies an action.
The other thing we could do is, you see the pictures of the two, the lower picture is closer in. So we could use a higher resolution picture behind the peel on the top. You notice how the street's much smaller and
Yeah.
that way you could identify it more quickly.
I think to create some, some
Yeah, so
more
kind of have a
pop
better
in the
zoom in
photos.
picture. It could still be the street and the river, but
Yeah.
it would be more visual.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
And my only critique of number one is, I think the logo's a little bit small, and maybe that's, there again, it's hard to conceptualize a billboard off of this, so maybe it is correct, but we definitely wanna make sure they know who they're looking at, and where they're trying to get to.
That's a good point.
yeah.
Is there a way to put the logo on the peel part and then increase the size? Cause when you see this, if you're driving down the freeway, the last thing you see is the website. And if our goal is to drive people to the website, that has to be the number one thing that's remembered.
And we have to remember, we're going on a billboard that is going to, you know,
But
expand
you're- I
that.
mean,
To
even
your
if you just-
point, it
Just
will work.
Very quickly look at this, you see opportunity awaits, and you didn't catch the
Yeah.
website.
Sherburne.
Cause my point is that with a bigger billboard, there'd be plenty of room for that logo to go on that white peel part of it.
So if you put the logo on the white peel, it'll stand out more. And then you take the Sherburne Biz and make that almost the same size as the opportunity awaits.
With that thought, maybe moving forward with tweaking this and bringing then 2 to 3 designs of this one with those 2 to 3 small designs to you guys
Yeah.
for December.
Yeah, I like that. Because the other thing I think is, I do think the Sherburne County logo needs to be a little bigger. In order to do that, instead of centering everything, you might offset the logo and then have your text to the side so that you can increase, because to your point, I didn't even think about this, we're all just assuming it's Sherburne County. And so I didn't even catch the fact that that's the only place it really says Sherburne County. So we need to make sure that that stands out.
And I know it's hard, but the other thing too is if you capitalize the S in Sherburne and capitalize the B in Biz, then you can pick it up easier as you're going by very fast.
Yeah, so some iterations on,
70 miles an hour.
yeah, some iterations on this one.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
What was that?
All right,
Which then,
I think we have consensus there, that's all you need, correct?
yep.
One quick thing, also on the billboard placement, there'll be a cost consideration, but, I would recommend that we have a couple different, target audiences, based on where the placement would be. So, one would, or think about what your target audiences are, because they're probably different. To your point, if we have some closer to downtown, we're trying to attract businesses to relocate. If you've got them in other locations, we're thinking about combinations of businesses and employees for relocation. So there may be a couple of different target audiences, and that will drive where the location will be, so think about that as well.
One of the things too that I'd like to see us look at, and I haven't seen it for a while, is there always is, you know, we have that flow chart. There's inflow coming in from the west, and then there's exit going out to the east. And usually the reason that you have that exit going out to the east is because people get paid more to head there. And until you can balance that to where they no longer, when they do the math and calculate their time, their cost to get to the workplace, we've got to get it to where it makes more sense for them to live here and work here. And until we kind of figure out that, and I haven't seen where those numbers are at in a long time as to, are we getting close to what they pay in the metro as versus out here that would keep people or want them to come and move out here and work here? I'm just curious. I think we need to look at those numbers at some point.
And then, so off of these billboards, since they're all going to the Sherburne Biz, we wanted to show you what we've created so far for Sherburne Biz. So again, it's an update from SherburneBusiness.com. We wanted to do Sherburne Biz partially also to bring it in-house, so now we have full control using Squarespace because it's just easy to make a website with. I bring this website up knowing that we have a lot of tweaks still yet to do. It's not live, it's not published. But the thing right away is on this page, this opportunity awaits picture. It's coming up dark because we're in editing mode. There's not much way to get around it. On the actual website, it will be that bright. So think of this nice bright picture for the website when you're seeing this. And we can also clip it over to the cell phone view because Squarespace does a really good mobile-friendly version too. So think of this picture when we're looking at the website. But we got opportunity awaits. We've got our jobs, business, homes, nice and bold. And all of it, there's a lot of click-throughs. You can click on this picture, you can click on the header, you can click on this. It sends them back either to our economic development webpage for Sherburne County or to direct contact information for me, so depending on the click-through. And then it goes right into hearing from other businesses and what they have to say. And these videos were from about 4 or 5 years ago, so I think a lot of you have seen these before, but it's worth watching at least one of them again. It's 3 minutes long. I think this one's actually a really good one to play for us all, but they're pretty evergreen, and they were really well done when they were made.
I love these kids. I love our amazing dedicated staff here, and I love finding ways to make preschool affordable for local families while still paying our staff a fair wage. It's all about helping these kids get ready for kindergarten. When I took ownership of First Step Preschool, I wanted to add the child care program so parents could more feasibly drop their kids off, pick them up around a work schedule, plus it helped keep our business afloat. First Step Preschool has been a part of Elk River for 40 years, and I've been teaching here for 20 of those. And then I became the owner and director in 2014. Now we have adults bringing their preschoolers in saying, I remember when I came here as a child. A lot of siblings get to share the same experience together as each one gets old enough to join our program and then moves on to kindergarten. Purchasing our own building and adding the playground equipment posed quite a challenge for us. We had a vision for how we wanted to expand, but there was a gap in our budget that we just couldn't overcome. We looked in other counties for locations that could help us with our growth. Ultimately, we didn't want to move away from the community we were already serving. We have parents that bring their kids from Big Lake, Zimmerman, Princeton, St. Michael. Because we were centrally located, that makes us really accessible to the local families who really need this resource. At the time, I was working with Scott Shaky with CDMC on a small business loan, and he said, I think Sherburne County has a program that could help us. So he reached out to them and was able to communicate what I had in mind, and they wanted to get on board. I was approved for a revolving loan fund through the Economic Development Association, and honestly, they were very easy to work with. When I had a question, I was able to call Dan Weber directly, and he would answer them for me. The whole experience was seamless. I believe First Step belongs in Sherburne County because they recognize the value we bring to our community and want businesses like ours to thrive. Our kids, our parents, our staff have everything they need in one place thanks to Sherburne's support. I'm Lisa Egan, and I own First Step Preschool and Child Care in Elk River, Minnesota.
And so we have 15 of these. And in addition to having them on Sherburne Biz, what I'd like to start doing too is working with Dave Bunzy and putting up one of these videos at a time, like maybe once monthly on the Facebook page of Sherburne County as well. Start getting these videos back out there through the different feeds because they are really professionally made and all these businesses are still in business in Sherburne County here. So,
You said they are, you have verified they're all still in business? Okay,
all of these ones are.
It'd be important to check that. The other is, do we have to go back and verify with the businesses that they're, do we have written permission?
Yeah, we got their permission.
Okay.
And you could present these as a business of the month, sort of, you know, get a little bit of fanfare, a little bit of hype behind it instead of just, you know, and then promote the business a little bit that way also.
I would let the
businesses that we have helped in some fashion. So that's why they were highlighted, but we can expand that.
I like the idea of starting to launch these with the billboard campaign from the Facebook page. And I think I would go back out to these businesses and have a schedule of when you're gonna highlight them so that they can promote themselves as well. Hey, you know, Sherburne County's gonna be promoting us, you know, December, whatever it is, and it gives them an opportunity to repost it on their pages and sort of things as well.
And if you're gonna highlight them, could you go back out, do you have a multimedia team to do a short reel? Like, if you're gonna highlight them of the month, you could run the video that is a more established, longer piece, but you could do a short clip if you go to visit them, you know, at a different time of year or what have you.
I think that leads nicely into, I know, working closely with Dave and figuring out what our videos, any new videos should look like. That would be a good way to get into that new video side of the house.
Do you think that we should maybe go like a month with just the billboards and not actively do Facebook as much, just to see how many clicks we get from the billboard? If it's worth, you know, if we're getting our money back as far as spending on the advertising.
And do the clicks, can you identify their origination, like?
We can identify the origination, but if they type in SherburneBiz.com, we don't know if that came from a billboard.
Right, but
That's,
I mean,
and that's what I meant.
if that's the only source of getting the information out is just the billboards, you would know how much traction you have from those billboards.
The problem is some impressions like that build over time. And so, you know, your first month that you put something out there is always gonna be slow, because you're building the number of impressions, the number of time the person drives by that billboard. They don't click on it the first time they see it. It's the 6th or the 10th time that they see it. And so I understand where you're headed with that. The problem is that then how long do you wait to launch the Facebook campaign?
Well, right, but then if you're gonna have a campaign, I mean, you're either like a Chris Lindahl where it's just like, you know it then, right? That's a couple months out. But if you're only doing like here and there, very scattered, it's not gonna, your branding, I don't think it's gonna be there as much.
So I think to your point, like, you'd want more exposure. So like, if you, like, I will commute into the cities, like, yeah, I'll go in for meetings like 3 times a month. And so I'll see a billboard on Highway 10 3 times. But if I come back to my phone and see that ad and that impression, like, I'm probably not gonna just drive by a billboard and go directly to that website. But if I come back to my phone every day that week and there's an impression because it's coming up in my algorithm, then it's repeated exposure, and then I might click on that to say, gosh, you know, we are thinking about looking for a new home. Maybe we'll think about looking in Sherburne County. So I think the impressions and the exposure working together, yes, absolutely, but it's a piece of the puzzle. So I think the repeated exposure is really where we're gonna get our bang for the buck. And then that billboard pays off in conjunction with the whole strategy. That's just my opinion.
And Todd, we can actually work backwards. People that click on this and go to Sherburne Biz from Facebook, from Instagram, we'll be able to know that. And so we can pull those page views aside, because we'll know that it's the people that type it into their phone directly that we can maybe assume maybe saw a billboard, but at least we can pull out those that did see it from Facebook and clicked through from Facebook to there. We can track that.
But to your point though, it could be a combination of them seeing the billboard and the Facebook page over time, and then they click on the Facebook page.
Well, that's it. The dynamics of advertising have changed so much with social media and things like that, you know, quite often I imagine somebody would see a billboard, but look them up on Facebook next and maybe go, you know, which would skew the numbers and look like it's coming from Facebook, but really the initial thought came from the billboard. Advertising's hard to quantify anyway, you know, I mean, but we are talking brand, so I'd let, you know, maybe where we're going here is it isn't so much advertising as it is branding. It's not marketing, it's branding. We're trying to brand Sherburne County, and that's more of a long-term endeavor than specific numbers for a 3-month period. That's, realtors are notorious for this, it's about getting their face out there consistently. Not that everybody's looking to buy a house today, but when they are, that's the first one that comes to mind because it's been in the paper for years. And I think if we're going to move on this, the vision should be more branding Sherburne County.
The other, so I like the videos. What else, were you gonna scroll through the rest of this?
So then we have why Sherburne County? And this can obviously be rearranged here, but we did want to highlight that we are 5th growing county in Minnesota, 5th fastest, that we have all these access to the different transportation corridors. And then on our own business programs and then our city's programs, these can individually link out. So right now it does link out to our economic development page, and then living and working, so this links out to our child care map. This can link out to our school districts if we wanted to. So all of these can be link outable, but really trying to highlight why us. And then Dan wanted my face somewhere on the website, so I put it at the very bottom.
I'm surprised it's not Ken's.
Yeah, that's right. And then contacting there. So, and again, all these will be clickable, so then it sends them back to economic development, to my information, to our main economic development page.
Can you scroll back up just a little bit?
Yeah,
Just scroll through it.
At the top on the enter page, are you gonna put the logo anywhere underneath there so opportunity awaits where? Is it up there? That's gonna show? Okay. Then it's there.
So, quick question. So the engine that you're using to drive this, if you go to your videos piece, the one area that I'm concerned is there's a lot of videos there, and I like all the videos, but it gives the impression people may stop scrolling. Is there a way to have a row of 3 videos that rotate?
Like a carousel?
Like a carousel. And then you can have the rest of the videos down lower on the page, but your action items are then higher up on the screen. You don't want to have to scroll down too far, you lose people. So if you can have one row of videos that they carousel through, and then the rest of them you can see down below, but then have your main points right below that, I think is a little more user-friendly design.
I like that personally because it's the same issue when you go to the mobile-friendly one. If you're looking at this on your phone, you end up having to scroll through a lot of videos before you get to our action item.
Yep.
And you're gonna lose people that way. So if on the phone too, it's a carousel of, if I'm on my phone and this one is there for 5 seconds, then it goes to the next one for 5 seconds. But then later down the page, after our action items, we go ahead and put all the videos, then they're still there.
They can also be a carousel where when it reloads, so you've got 3 that are static. When it reloads, it's a different 3.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Well, and I would say if you load 3 at a time, do 1 business, 1, housing, 1, like, jobs or what, make sure that if you're loading 3, it's from 3 different segments of what you want to feature, and then make sure that they rotate out.
the other piece is there any plan around search engine optimization for the Sherburne Biz site?
We haven't explored that yet.
So something for the economic team to consider. We can. Everybody has a business. I'm sure everybody does SEO or hires somebody to do their SEO, right? So, you can spend as much money as you want on that, but it's not. You can also be reasonable. I think for my business, but it's really relatively targeted. I spend like $500 a month for a professional company to do SEO, so that I pop up in the top 3 on Google search. And so it's actually pretty economical to do that, but it's money spent if we want to use it. But if we're going to spend time and money on advertising and a website. Want to make sure people see it.
So Brian, how interactive is this website? So you said that we have control over it, so you're looking to go in there and mix things up quite a bit, right?
Absolutely.
So, kind of to Molly's thought process here, as far as, you know, the three things that we're taglining, like on our billboards and stuff. So the business, you've got the business videos there, the homes, however that looks as far as available property or whatever. But as far as the jobs would it be pertinent to highlight a business every month, Cargill, you know, job opportunities, I mean, if you're looking, you know, here's what they are. I mean, we're really here to support our businesses through this also, so this is really, there's a lot of different wins with what we're doing, but if you pull out a manufacturer a month that's looking for help and give them some advertising, it fulfills our mission as far as under the jobs tagline, but also helps our businesses get the word out there.
My only question on that, because I think it's a great idea, would you see me going to the business and say, hey, do you have open roles? Or do we need to make it an open call to make it fair? Because I'm good with either way, but I think it's a good idea to be able to highlight certain jobs that are available one company at a time. I do like that. Let's figure out how.
I mean, if you want, I think to make it fair, I think there should be a process for, you know, we can put it out to all the businesses that you've made contact with that, hey, we're gonna start highlighting businesses. Go to such and such website and fill out this form, and then, you know, you just work your way through them. Right. Have it a pull rather than a push. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're going to spend all your time calling businesses saying, "Hey, when do you have time to do this?"
Yeah, could you just create like a Google form that, you know, is a push or a spot, a link that they could click, and then including in that Google form is like, are you hiring? You know, how many positions do you typically hire for, or, you know, what categories?
Yeah, absolutely. And that'd be easy to do.
Well, even on the jobs portion of your website, if you had a link to, you know, click here to highlight your business in Sherburne County, that just advertises more that we're supporting the businesses in the county.
And that's where we can put in our own Sherburne County jobs as well for the HR side, if it makes sense to be in the jobs. So then, it sounds like my to-dos going into December then is to implement this onto the Sherburne Biz side. So then for December, we'll have the peel back logo and just two or three different tweaks on that, and we'll kind of finalize that. We'll have some quotes from Lamar and different locations of where we might put billboards. And then we'll bring back up Sherburne Biz. And our trial membership for this is ending soon, so this will start to be, I think, $25 a month to maintain and be able to host this and be able to control it ourselves. That seems to be a standard rate for websites, and we like the accessibility here, so we will need to purchase that if we want to keep
moving. We are paying someone else right now, so it's kind of a wash. It's a couple bucks more a month, but we do have an existing site, and this is just replacing that.
That's $25 a month?
$25 a month.
Oh, okay.
When's the target date to go live with that then?
Excellent question. I would assume after our December EDA board meeting, so you guys can get one more chop at it. January 1st.
All right. Well, that's good conversation. I think we're really heading in the right direction there, so. Anything else on that? You need any more directive? You got consensus on where? Okay.
I'm happy with that.
All right.
Unless you're willing to stand on the top of the billboard and open your arms and say, here we go.
I feel like someone's done that. I just can't remember their name. Just funny,
I
because I
tried
sold
to
my
block
house
them.
for them.
This is our last item.
Well, then announcement.
Yeah. All right, brings us to, I don't know what number we're on because this is a last minute add-on. We're looking for approval for a letter of support, for Big Lake, going for some, grant money, for a road. that- Hey, you're here.
I will. Say, good intro. For economic development.
With our industrial park, mainly this area here, there's really only one access into it currently, and we've had a lot of activity currently and over the last couple of years. Just this year, this parcel here, and here have all sold and are under development. So even a couple weeks ago when I drove out there, you couldn't get through this dead end road because the concrete trucks were coming in. Cargill's over here, and you guys have a lot of employees moving in and out. Near Marine, so Highway 10's here. There's a new Christian school that was just built, private school, so there's a lot of families, kids coming in, all coming back to just this one access. So it can be a little bit hectic, it's not controlled, so stop signs only. The EDA, Big Lake EDA purchased this 5-acre site about a year ago. And that'll be the new location for we're calling it the public safety facility. So it'll be police department, city hall, and then it'll also include the library. So we're already in the planning stages of what this road extension will look like, but then we're left with this gap. And so with all the business activity, new school, and then further potential development in the area, we're looking at trying to fill that gap. So we are seeking state funds to help with that project and asking for a letter of support. From various businesses, the county, et cetera, to help us get that done. So obviously safety, this is first and foremost. I mean, we have a school there now. Trying to get that done, and then just related business support and other benefits that we see with getting the road done. So a little bit of history on the request.
All right, I'd be looking for a motion to approve a letter of support to Big Lake to apply for funds.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. On to announcements. Number 1, received EDA Executive Director updates.
So, I'd say in the last month, one of the big things was the Just Transition Fund, Midwest convening and national convening. So, again, just as a Just Transition Fund was the agency that we received grant money from a year or two ago for entrepreneurship support. That's what we did the ILT Academy through, and the city of Becker did their feasibility study on. So we were invited to be kind of, not keynote speakers, but pretty heavily featured for a community that is working well with our energy partner on an energy transition with Excel and Sherco. So both Jacob and I sat on kind of multiple panels with that one and presented on working with Sherco, working with Excel through that process, how the cities work with the county and the counties work with all the other partners. So that went really well. It gave us a lot of good national attention. So I don't know if you have anything else to add on that, Jacob, but.
I think it was well, that connection is well worth it to the county and to just everybody in general, because I think there is about 38 states, all coal transition communities represented at this, several hundred individuals, and so anywhere from mining to power plant communities, and they're well connected both federally and I would say even some internationally. But
so it was a good getting us all on that national stage. And then I'd say for the childcare map, I did chat with some of you in the last month about the childcare map too. So we are working to call all the providers again and getting another update from our providers to update that map. Again, it is getting a lot of positive attention outside of the county, and other counties looking to try and see what they want to do similar, because it actually targets availability, not the deficit, not this or that. It's our parents connecting with availability right now. And so we're continuing that charge, trying to clean up the GIS website. It's sometimes a little bit clunky, so working with our GIS staff to make that childcare map flow even better. And then I am trying to start to get more into looking at the Twin Cities area and some of those site selectors type of things. So I am on a panel in January with the Minnesota Commercial Real Estate Women, MIN crew, that does a annual conference for commercial development. So I'll be basically presenting and pitching for Sherburne County to try and get more development here. So we are starting that, focusing on what conferences for me to attend and go to, so.
Great.
Sorry.
Questions for Brian?
Oh, and I will start doing the county clerking for our county board meetings. So if you want to see even more of me, which I'm sure you do, and you're already paying attention to the county board meetings, so now you have another reason to pay attention.
All right, county commissioners.
I can't really think of,
I got a couple real quick.
okay.
So I meet with the Sherburne County Fair Board once a month, and they are under the assignment right now of doing their first ever strategic plan. So I met with them last night. They did do an economic impact study, which was third party did it for them. They sent that to us. I think you got a copy of it. Can be made available to the.
Yeah, we could actually present on it next month.
Yeah.
A quick 5-minute presentation.
Yeah, it's a quick presentation, but there's a third party that did an economic impact study on it. The 5-year plan, so I've got them working on a strategic plan. This will be the first one they've ever done. They've got a consultant that's gonna work with them on it. The idea is I've told them to do a 5-year plan, year by year with, these are our goals for year 1, these are the projects to get there, then year 2, year 3, year 4, and 5. And by the end of year 5, this is what we want to be when we grow up. So they're going to be working on that. With the fair board, they're responsible for more than just the fair itself. It's also, there's other economic drivers around what they use the fairgrounds for, so it includes those things as well. But it's something that I think at some point this entity should be aware of, because it's done right. There is an economic impact to the fair and the activities that take place on the fairgrounds themselves, especially on the other one is that we can talk about is we did pass the tobacco ordinance Tuesday. So the two most controversial things that we passed are, one is you have to be 18 to sell tobacco products. That doesn't mean if you work that you can't have a 16 or 17-year-old working in a convenience store, but they just can't sell the tobacco products. And the other one is that flavored vapes, so specifically flavored vapes, can only be sold in tobacco shops. So those were.
But you have to be 21 to enter.
And you have to be 21 to enter a tobacco shop.
And you have to be 21 to work in a tobacco shop.
Yeah. So those two items got passed. Well, the overall tobacco ordinance got passed, but those were the two things that had the most controversy over. But that did get passed on Tuesday.
Yeah, because we kind of felt that to be 16, 17, to still be able to sell a product that you would not be able to do if it was alcohol. We feel the need to be 18 and hopefully a little bit away from school.
It aligns it with alcohol.
Yeah.
And, I think what I said is that, one of the commissioners said, these are adult products intended for adult use. And I said, then why would we want children selling them? So I realize it causes a concern with staffing where tobacco products are sold, but I felt pretty strongly about it.
And they will adjust, and we're willing to work with helping that process.
Yep.
I think another thing just to mention real quick, there was a public open house in Zimmerman last night in regards to the waste management Elk River landfill expansion. That is, they're in a time frame of open for comment on that. They do have information available on the website through the MTCA. And do you remember what's the website? MTCA, is it a as simple as .com? Okay. We're working on getting some of that information out for people to be able to look at it and comment anything that they see in that expansion proposal. So that is coming down the line.
Thank you very much. Brings us to our last item, which is to open it up to the table. If anybody has any news, what's going on in your specific economic world or like to share, questions, comments, concerns? All right, hearing none.
You should say, and Nicole, it put you on the spot, but your new role with the city of St. Cloud.
Yes.
How that's all going for you.
I've taken Lindsay's position with the City of St. Cloud as the Economic Development Specialist, and I've been there for about 2 months now, so just getting my feet wet. After about a year break, I was at home with the baby for about a year. We were just a little bit over, so trying to get back in the swing of it.
Oh, one thing everybody should be aware of, we did get a presentation on Tuesday on racial covenants in the county, in Sherburne County. And so you may hear about that. A little bit of history. If a property was deeded with racial covenants, meaning that it and usually what the covenant was, the wording was, this property shall not be conveyed or sold to anyone other than of the Caucasian race. That was the actual covenant. If it was deeded with that covenant, those records are permanent and can never be destroyed. So historically, you can go back and look at them. There is a form that a property owner, if their property that they currently own had that on the original deed, there's a disavowalment that they can fill out. But it will never change the fact that the original document is recorded that way. So there was an academic study being done in Minnesota counties on these racial covenants. It was recently released, and NPR picked up the story. So you may hear about that. It's not that those covenants still exist. Those covenants were outlawed by the Supreme Court in 1948, but those records still exist, and the records can't be destroyed. They're historic records. So just be aware of that.
And we found it interesting that after the Supreme Court ruling in 1948, that some of these covenants that appeared in, all of them appeared after 1948. So we figure it was maybe someone's way of.
But if you hear about it, that's the background.
We were quite surprised by the numbers ourselves when we seen the report.
And we have a few minutes left. Can we talk about cannabis? We're starting to get applications in a number of the cities
Sure.
and in the county. So I know Marie, you just had one, so we'll start.
Yeah, we've had a couple of questions come in, so the way for Big Lake specifically, we have deferred to the county for the registration side of things, but we have zoning only. So we've received, I don't know, probably 5-10 calls. A lot of them are on the same buildings, so we already know the answers kind of up front. But we are working through one. I know Mark at Sherburne County's been super involved. I did get a hold of him late yesterday. There's some confusion when folks are talking to us that there's the city zoning and there's the county ordinance as well. And since we defer for registration, so we're working through some of that, but we're definitely getting the phone calls.
Maybe that's the Casey's building.
No, actually, that one hasn't come up at all.
Weird.
Yeah.
Elk River City Council indicated they're not getting a lot of interest, which is a little surprising, so.
Do we know how the CR will affect cannabis edibles, or I'm sorry, hemp-based edibles?
We're trying to figure that out, yeah.
Okay.
There's some confusion about that.
Do you want me to touch?
Yeah, sure.
We do our own registering and zoning. We've gotten a number of calls about it. We've had several individuals. I think there was more recently the confusion on lower potency hemp edibles because the state only gave them 30 days to apply for this stuff. And so a lot of businesses weren't even aware of it. So our clerk had sent out letters to all of our local shops that sold it to try and point them in that direction. So as long as they applied, they can still sell it, but that was one of the recent changes. We had to make some changes in our ordinance as well on lower potency hemp wholesalers, edible wholesalers, because that was added under statute as well. And so, but we've had a number of cannabis inquiries. We've had several individuals who have looked at doing cultivation operations and retail licenses. We have one that we may end up seeing, but we haven't seen an official app come through the state at this point for zoning verification. And we allow up to 2, just for people's FYI, in the city for retail.
Yep, we're getting inquiries on micro business and meso business. The micro business is in Haven Township. They just want to cultivate there and then do, so that's one thing we didn't see coming when we were doing the ordinance was we just figured like a micro business would be in someone's garage where they cultivate, manufacture, like a home business. We're seeing some bigger operations now where someone wants to micro business cultivate in Haven Township, sell retail in Minneapolis. So we didn't see that kind of operation happening. Meso business, we have a large nationwide company inquiring about property in Livonia. They're greenhouses. We didn't know at the time greenhouses were going to be considered outdoor cultivation. So that is something new. The Meso business has a larger setback to residents that this particular property couldn't be met. So we just didn't anticipate some of the scenarios. We thought it would be more of a smaller home business type thing. So that's what we were kind of catering it to. Meso business, we figured be a bigger business. That's why we did larger separation from residents. So this particular property doesn't meet really any of the requirements for the Meso. So we may see some variances. We may see some amendments to the ordinance. I think that is something that we're going to have to do. Again, we did the ordinance before the state even had their rules in place. We had the statute. So, for the cultivation, if you're doing a large cultivation, it's permitted. But if you're doing micro business or a Meso and it's outdoor cultivation, it has to be an IUP. So it doesn't make sense, and we've seen that. So we'll probably be doing some proposed amendments. We're doing our zoning and subdivision ordinance update. Just a real quick update on that. We did have an internal partner and a steering committee meeting on October 27th. The steering committee, we discussed hamlets, land use table and standards. And then the internal partners, we reviewed a major overhaul of the subdivision ordinance. So I've been reviewing that, but we'll probably have another internal partner meeting and steering committee meeting probably in the first part of January. But we're moving forward. I like the format that they're doing. It's an easier to read text. We got tables now as opposed to just listed items. So that's something I'll probably be showing the EDA here in the next month or so.
I was going to say, Dan, one thing it's kind of random, but I think we're hearing on cannabis too that there's a shortage of the plant. So that is affecting a lot of operations because you have to grow it in Minnesota. You cannot transport it. And so a lot of the growers' seed and all that other stuff affects how those establishments are being developed too. So just a side note that as you hear, there is a major shortage of the actual plant itself, which affects the retail.
Grow between solar panels.
Josh, you want anything?
On the cannabis front?
Right.
Yeah, I can provide, I got a couple bullets here, but no, we purchased land for our new northbound liquor and cannabis muni store, so hoping to break ground on 420. They're serious too, yeah.
That's awesome. Where's the property?
It's just south of Coburn's, right next to the existing northbound liquor store.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, literally just south of the building, there's kind of an outlot, there's some extra parking.
Okay.
I will add one thing on housing. In the last couple of weeks, we've received a couple different concept plans from developers, and we have one plat going through the process. So with the kind of pipeline of lots, I don't have the exact numbers, I was trying to do the math quick, almost 400 single-family home lots being proposed right now, so it's still very substantial, which, depending on their timeline or what happens with concept plans, one might fall off or whatever, but that's still a significant number, at least for us. So that's exciting.
Well, we have a 14 lot development going in Livonia. I think the houses are starting at 700,000 or 800,000. I thank the developer for contributing to the affordable housing here in the county, so.
Elk River's got a couple of large developments, don't you?
Yeah, the one down, Old Spec property, I think there's close to like 500 roofs there. Yeah, that's a great move, and we're still working on the Bradford Park estates as we're kind of phasing through that, so.
But remember, those move-up housing does free up the lower income once there's availability for people to move, so it's all good.
Cycle housing.
Assuming people move.
Becker Township has 20 to 30 lots too. I don't know if you're involved in that at all.
Yeah, we haven't, I mean, the city, I mean, we have a few very vacant properties. We've had one separate proposal on more of a high-density process, but it's really preliminary planning on the northwest side. We have a lot of high density on that Luann Drive area over on the west side of the city. We did release a housing study RFP yesterday, so we are redoing our comprehensive housing study.
Jacob, is there anything around the city of Becker that has any potential of getting developed when?
Like industrial, or are you talking about?
I'm talking housing.
Housing?
Industrial, I know you got a lot.
Yeah, we have a number. We have the 212 we've been working on for a while. Infrastructure costs, and I know Don Hickman sent out that survey for EDD priorities. The priorities from we actually had our council talk on those last night at our executive session and Tuesday night, and infrastructure funding is the major priority, because we're talking, our 212 acres is probably anywhere from $11 to $12 million to serve 212 acres, because it requires a lift station, substantial sewer and water infrastructure, and roads. And so when you look at that cost, even spread out over 212 to make it feasible is substantial. So we do have a lot of developable property, but the infrastructure pieces are a major.
And that's where I don't think people realize too, you look at Sherburne County, it looks flat, but it's actually a bowl that requires so many lift stations in a lot of the areas to develop.
So that is
They're not
something
cheap.
we've worked on quite a bit, and so the housing study, we're hoping will give us some actionable items from a financial standpoint too. We're not just looking for data, we're also looking for some other information from a policy and strategy standpoint as well with that, so.
All right. Well, fantastic, we've reached our limit, so I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Great meeting.